Good afternoon and welcome to this video interview we have with my friend Allison Riccardi. Allison is the director of St. Raphael Mental Health Counseling in New York and also the founder and president of CatholicTherapist.com. Allison, thank you so much for joining us today and taking the time.
Happy to be here, Lisa.
Would you tell us a little bit about how you came to become a therapist and do this wonderful work?
Well, years ago when I studied psychology, I was a little disenchanted. I wasn't very religious at the time, but I saw they left God out of it, and it didn't make any sense because I knew He was the only one who could really heal people. So I went off and I did other things. I did commercial real estate and stuff, and then I started doing pro-life work, and then I was called back to be a therapist. And I was lucky enough to start in a Catholic counseling agency. And my supervisor at the time really integrated the faith. So I was always trained in that model, and I saw that it was really effective and that people really needed to integrate the faith if you're going to find healing. Because, in school we study a lot of theories, and many of them are really good, and a lot of them really fall short, or they can actually be very, I think, harmful to people. So we need, I think, a model of what is healthy behavior. And I think the church really shows us that, certainly the person of Jesus and Mary, that we see what is a healthy, integrated human being. And I think we need to know the goal if we're going to get there.
And that's so important. I think that we rush through life these days, and when these tragedies happen, like divorce or the death of a spouse or all the multiple things that could happen, we don't take the time to tend to ourselves. We have to, the world keeps spinning. We still have to show up at work. We still have to pay the bills. And so there's a demand on us that kind of, makes us ignore ourselves. And I think that, that's a real detriment to a healthy society.
Absolutely. And I think divorce, since that's what we're really talking about, is one of those really underestimated traumas in life. And I think because it's so common, it doesn't get the attention it deserves. And it's a devastating and shattering experience because everything in your world changes. It's, if somebody loses a spouse through death, I mean, it's tragic and it's awful. But divorce, there's so much pain. It's very hard to have closure after a divorce, especially if you have children in common, you had friends in common, you were close to other family members on both sides of the family. And everything changes. So, the church in its great wisdom, with the annulment process, that slows it down. If we really go by that and say, I really shouldn't be dating until I have that annulment. That annulment process really takes time to look at what actually happened, what went wrong here, at the very foundation of the marriage. And for, for clarification, it's not a Catholic divorce. It's not like a Jewish divorce. It's actually determining whether an actual sacrament took place. And what an annulment is looking at is, were there issues in either party that existed before the marriage that made it impossible for them to enter into the sacrament? Because for a sacrament to be valid, we need to have valid matter. So, for instance, a priest with the best intentions cannot consecrate a donut and a cup of coffee. It has to be unleavened bread, made from wheat, wine made from grapes.
Right.
There's a certain formula, certain words that he must say in order to confect the Eucharist. So when it comes to marriage, it's the husband and wife administering the sacrament to one another. So if either of them is either immature, psychologically not whole, does not believe in the permanence of the marriage, is not open to children, and various factors, then God knows the state of those people, and He cannot confer His grace on something that it doesn't have valid matter. So the annulment process is really saying that, there was no sacramental grace. Therefore, you had a civil marriage because the, Catholic ceremony qualifies as a civil, you get a marriage license. So it's still a legitimate marriage that you can't, your kids are not illegitimate or anything like that, but that a sacrament did not take place. Therefore, you are free to remarry.
Now, I know that in my own experience, being divorced and seeking healing through therapy, I did kind of run into or butt heads with the first 2 or 3 therapists that I saw. One, I went to see, and I was very, very distraught. It was just a couple of years after. And she said, honey, what are you crying for? Get up and get out there and go find someone new. Find someone who's going to treat you as the princess that you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't really say that that was helpful advice, but that woman was not Catholic, and she did not understand the ramifications of divorce for me as a Catholic. So what I'm hearing from you is that's one reason why a Catholic therapist is so important, because they do uphold the sanctity of marriage. What are the other benefits of having a Catholic therapist?
Well, to understand the benefits of marriage, but also to kind of understand how our faith works and how that can be a real aid to your emotional healing. That God heals us. Therapists are really only the instruments God uses to point us to Him to find healing. And I have to kind of chuckle at that therapist's advice. I mean, Billy, you don't need a therapist to give you that advice.
Right.
That's therapy.
Right.
That's almost a platitude. Just, go get somebody else that you know better.
My aunt said that.
Yeah, exactly. But you don't have to pay her $150 a bet.
Right, exactly.
But I'm saying, for a therapist to, we really need to understand that there's an impact of this. It's like a meteoric impact on somebody. And to just slough it off and say, just go find somebody else, that's just putting a Band-Aid on a gaping wound.
Yes.
So, and we shouldn't use other people as Band-Aids.
Right.
So that needs healing. We need to look at how a person is using their emotions, because a healthy way of living is that we experience all of our emotions because they're all given to us by God and they're good. But we learn how to guide them by reason toward goals that are good.
Now, your site is CatholicTherapists.com.
Mm-hmm.
And tell us, what are the good reasons to go to your site to find a Catholic therapist, as opposed to maybe going to a diocesan website or looking in your parish bulletin?
There are many people who simply advertise to Catholics as a viable market. And maybe even some that call themselves Catholic because, they were raised Catholic. They may go to church once in a while, but they don't necessarily understand and integrate church teaching into the therapy process. And what I did on Catholic Therapists is I on the application that the therapist has to fill out, I excerpted from the catechism on different issues that might come into play in therapy. So divorce and remarriage would be one of them, artificial contraception, church teaching on homosexuality, and even New Age, because I think those are important things to really understand what the church teaches and to agree with that teaching. And if somebody doesn't agree with that teaching, if somebody applies and they don't agree with that teaching, then I will address it with them. And if we don't come to terms on it, that they, sometimes it's a misunderstanding, and sometimes people simply disagree, and those I will not list on the site, because people who are coming to Catholic therapists want to feel secure and safe that the therapist they're finding is not going to undermine their faith in any way.
If I went to your site, I could search for a therapist that I know, or if I didn't know, I could search within my local area?
Yeah, generally people would go on, and when you click on Find a Therapist, it'll take you eventually to a page where you would then put in the state that you live in. There's a drop-down menu, and then all the therapists in that state will display. You just have to scroll down to the bottom to see all those that are in your state. If you can't find somebody in your state, there are many that will work with you by phone. So if there's even a criteria, you can just look for somebody who works by phone and see who's listed there.
For those people in the rebuilding phase, what advice would you give them? What kind of pearls of wisdom can you offer them?
Well, I think before you go rushing out into the dating world, make sure you've resolved the issues that either led to your divorce, issues that have come out of your divorce, some of the stressors that might have been there, some of the maladaptive things that you may have learned in order to cope in a bad situation. To really take that time to really get to know yourself, pray for wisdom, pray for insight, and pray for God to make you the person that you need to be and to lead you to that right person. God never allows a bad thing to happen unless He intends to bring a greater good of it. Don't be afraid to get the help that you need. It may not take years, but yeah, and also to read some good books on marriage. There are some really good books out there. Greg Popchak's book, For Better Forever, A Catholic Guide to Lifelong Marriage. And there's others. Another great book is Love and Respect by Emerson Eggerichs. I've never seen it, but it's really great because it really talks about the man's need for respect and a woman's need for love. And I've seen that play out over the years, that women, when they feel unloved, tend to be disrespectful. And men, when they feel disrespectful, act in unloving ways, and they get into what he calls the crazy cycle.
Those were great words of advice, Allison. I think that even for our non-divorced friends who come over to the divorce portal and check things out, those are great pearls of wisdom. So I thank you for that. And your websites are straphaelhealing.com and catholictherapists.com, and therapists is plural.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, Allison, I am, again, thrilled that you took the time for me today. And this was a great little discussion. I'm sure that our viewers are going to get a lot out of it. So thank you so much.
So great to be here, Lisa. Thank you. God bless you.
You're welcome.